Hi there, I'm Anil, welcome to my channel about crypto. In today's video I want to talk a bit about the current market situation. Something I haven't done in a few weeks because, well, I thought there wasn't really that much to talk about. But recently, crypto's been doing quite well. NFTs, a lot of NFT projects have been pumping. And you've probably seen quite a few influencers already talking about potentially bull run coming back. So I just wanted to essentially give you my thoughts about the current market situation and what I think is likely to happen next. So first of all, let's look at crypto fear and greed index. And we are actually in a greed territory, barely, but we are. And if you look at this index over the last 3 months, we've been in the greed or neutral territory for, well, about 2 weeks now, from roughly mid-January. Before that, we were firmly in fear or extreme fear. And if we actually look at this indicator over the last year, well, those last couple of weeks are actually the most bullish period we had since basically April 2022. So that's quite promising potentially. I'll be looking at various things in this video, essentially pros and cons of whether we are at the beginning of a bull run or not. But this is certainly one thing that shows that market players are being bullish and being quite optimistic about what's about to happen. Whether they're right or not, of course, that's a separate thing, but at least the sentiment is certainly improving comparing to where we were for, well, pretty much the whole second half of 2022. Then if we move to NFTs and we look at the transaction volume on OpenSea, transaction volume in dollars and then in ETH, well, we can actually see that it looks like we've bottomed out on both of those in November. December was a tiny bit better, and then quite a noticeable jump in January. Of course, this is still hardly anything to get excited about comparing to where we were in late 2021, early 2022, but certainly it's quite an optimistic sign. And we are only a couple of days into February, and there's already a little bit of movement there as well. So hopefully February will be quite good as well. So that's another plus for the bulls. Again, it looks like the sentiment is changing. I mean, certainly it feels in NFT space like things are moving forward quite a bit. There are a few projects which I am extremely bullish on, but to be honest, I'm bullish on them because they are building like a lot now in the bear market, and I can see that they have huge potential once the bull market comes. It's not about flipping them in the short term, it's more about long-term potential. But there are also plenty of other smaller projects or projects which may be worth flipping on the shorter time frames, which well, they are there, right? For a while there was pretty much nothing going on, and now we are back to the situation when you can actually start making money in crypto NFTs again. So let's have a look at Bitcoin chart now. And that's a weekly chart, so weekly candles. And actually, as you can see, we are at the levels now, even though we have a bit of a pullback at the moment. But even considering that pullback, we are still at the levels we haven't really seen since, well, August 2022, not counting this week here. So that's pretty decent sign. Also, this significant move up we had from essentially roughly 15-16 grand to around 22-23 where we're sitting right now. We haven't really have a move of this scale since pretty much this move right here, and that was March 2022, almost a year ago. So again, that's quite optimistic, I would say. There's certainly a bit of action happening here. Of course, this level right here is going to be very strong resistance, so around 24 and a bit to about 25 grand. And a lot of people are expecting that 25 grand is going to be a major resistance level, also a psychological level. So until we break above it, I expect that this is where we may see a bigger pullback. But nonetheless, the situation looks quite good. What's also really important is this indicator here. It's TTM squeeze, and I won't be getting into details in this video, but you can basically translate it as how the price is oscillating, right? So when you see those light blue bars, it means that the price action is very, very bullish. Dark blue bars mean that we are losing momentum. Dark red means that, well, we are in a significant bearish phase, and then yellow means that we are coming out of that bearish phase. Of course, just because we are coming out doesn't necessarily mean that we'll break then into a bullish phase, right? As you can see, we can then pull back down and so on. But what's important here is the fact that we now start seeing the last couple of weeks light blue candles here, light blue bars. We can barely see them, but what's important is that if you look at this, the last time we had anything in blue was here in December 2021. So just the fact that we are breaking into this potentially bullish territory is potentially very bullish. I mean, of course, we can still have a breakdown. It may still go right below. I mean, we are barely in this territory and we can still go down, but we haven't seen this kind of sentiment for quite a while. So yeah, a lot of indicators pointing to potentially positive price movement. If we then look at daily candles, well, today's been pretty bad. I mean, it's not a huge dip, but still good few $100s. But more importantly, the last sort of 10 days, 2 weeks have been really, really choppy, right? We are basically bouncing between, if we look at those weeks, anything from, let's call it 22.5 to, well, at times 24 grand. And basically it's just chop. However, with a slight uptrend, I mean, as we can see, most of those weeks are actually trending upwards, right? And bottoms are also slowly going up. I mean, of course, we don't know where this candle will close, but with a bit of luck, if it doesn't go below these two, well, we are still in some sort of an uptrend, which is quite good. Also, if we look at TTM squeeze here, of course, it looks a bit different because we are now on a daily time frame rather than weekly. So it actually here indicates that we are coming out of the bullish phase into a bearish one, but that's of course on a much shorter time frames. But what's important here is that we have this orange dot. So one thing in this indicator are those bars, but the second one are those colored dots. And you can imagine them as a coiled spring. And the way this indicator works is that it doesn't tell us whether the price will go up or down, but it tells us that as the spring is coiling, if that makes sense, it will have to go somewhere. It will have to expand either to the upside or to the downside. When the dots are green, it means that there is relatively small chance of sudden explosive movement. So basically they're coiling up here as they turn orange and red, and then they are expanding, if that makes sense. So the price goes up as we've seen it here. We now see first orange dot in quite a while. I mean, the last one we had on the 10th of January, so almost a month ago. So there is a potential, of course it may be just a single dot, but if we see more of those orange or red dots building, there's a potential that there may be some significant price movement coming. Whether to the upside or to the downside remains to be seen. I mean, I would argue that we are still in an uptrend, but it's been a weird market, so I don't want to make, to be perfectly honest, at the moment, we can go up, we can go down. I still don't fully trust this pump, and I'll talk about it in a minute, but I'm more bullish than I've been essentially in the last, I don't know, at least 6 months or more, because at least there's a little bit of optimism in the market. There is at least a little bit of bullish sentiment. Also, as someone quite reasonably pointed out, last year was absolutely abysmal for crypto. And I think I've mentioned this before as well. I mean, with the beginning of the war in Ukraine, with the inflation skyrocketing, interest rates going up, with the collapse of Luna, FTX, many other huge companies in the crypto space, it's quite hard to imagine a scenario in which the market or crypto market would go lower than those numbers here, right? So sort of 15, 16 grand. I mean, everything is possible, but you would imagine that it would take some pretty major event for it to happen. Otherwise, well, it would have happened by now, right? It would have happened, I don't know, when FTX collapsed, for example, or something like that, or when Luna collapsed. Of course, those situations, those events led to huge sell-offs. But nonetheless, well, that was our bottom right here, around, I think, 15.5 grand or something like that. Depends on the exchange, I suppose, but we would need another similar event. I mean, that was the FTX sell-off. Even if we have something similar happening now, I mean, that would only take us down to, let's have a look at this price movement. So that sell-off was, well, let's call it around 27%, right? So something similar now. From this top, 27% down. That would still take us down to around 17 grand. So, I mean, roughly around those peaks here. And then it would have to go at least 2-3 grand more in order to break below that previous bottom. So it will have to be a major event. Again, we're talking here about the collapse of the FTX. So another event on a similar scale in order to take crypto below that level. So I think there are reasons to be optimistic. Also, if we look outside of crypto, if we look at, let's look at Dow Jones. I mean, that's been a bit choppy recently, but overall seems to be moving up. I mean, we have a bit of a wedge forming here, so we're not entirely sure whether that will break up to the upside or to the downside. And as you can see from TTM squeeze, it's certainly loading towards something. But overall, well, it's been moving up for a bit now. It's certainly recovering. If we look at S&P 500, actually, let me grab this one. If you look at this blue trend line, as you can see, it's been a major resistance level on 4 occasions. We had an attempt of breakout here, but of course that crashed straight away. And basically, S&P 500 has been following this line since, well, this point here, which is very early January 2022. So we are now over a year, 13 months later, or sorry, for a year, it's been following this or respecting this trend line. And now the last couple of weeks, as you can see, we had a massive breakout above it. We haven't tested it back as a support. And to be honest, I was expecting that what we will see is more like this move up here, then pull back, test, and then, well, either break below or further move up. But it's been pretty solidly moving up so far, of course, with some dips here and there, but we are now way above that level. That was what, 398. We're currently sitting at 412. So as long as S&P 500 stays above it, that's, I think, extremely bullish. So all in all, I think we are in a pretty good market at the moment. The market is certainly much more bullish than it's been for, well, months now. Is it the beginning of the next big bull run? I'm not entirely sure yet, because at the end of the day, the macroeconomic situation worldwide, it's still not the best, to put it mildly, right? We still have very high inflation, even if it peaked, which is questionable, or it depends how you look at it or how you measure it. But even if it peaked, well, it's still very high, and it hasn't peaked in all countries. Interest rates are still very high, and they will likely continue going up for a bit. Yes, they're going up at a slower pace now, 25 points rather than 50 points, but still they are going up. And of course, there's still a lot of uncertainty. There are still issues with supply chains. There is still war in Ukraine, which is limiting supplies of many items. We are still dealing with the fallout of the whole COVID pandemic and so on. There have been huge layoffs in most of the big tech companies and many other companies. So I think it will still take a few months before we can actually properly say whether we are at the beginning of the next bull run or not. If for the next few months inflation continues going down, if it looks like the economy is a bit fragile but it's not falling apart, then I think, yeah, there will be a really good reason to get bullish, to become bullish and to think that, okay, well, the bottom is probably in. Probably that dip around the FTX collapse, that was probably the end of it, right? That was probably the low point. And we are now actually going up. But I'm most definitely not FOMOing in right now, thinking that, oh yeah, the bottom is definitely in, and put all your money into crypto and it will just continue going up from now. If that was the bottom, we have plenty of time before the proper next bull run, right? If we look at what happened last time, of course, it was a slightly different situation because we had the whole pandemic thing and so on. That was March 2020. That's when the pandemic officially started. And that's when the bottom was in. And since then, as you can see, yeah, we were trending up. So the bottom was what? I think it was 3,000 something or 4,000. Then we were sitting around 7,000 for a while. So pretty much twice that. But then it took forever to actually have that proper bull run. I mean, things didn't really start heating up until October 2020, like 6 months later. And the proper parabolic move up came another month and a half later or a month later. If we even look at this period here, when we bottomed out after 2017, I mean, that was just about 3,000. And we were sitting there for a while. Then we had this move up here, up to around 12,000, huge move. But then again, a bit of a pullback. Even if we cancel the pandemic, even if that never happened, well, this move was still valid, right? We were still trending down after this run here. And then if the pandemic didn't happen, I don't know, maybe we would be slowly trending up from this point right here, right? But what I'm trying to say is that there are still months and months before things will like properly go crazy. I still don't expect a major crypto bull run until at least mid next year, so mid 2024. I would expect that Bitcoin halving in spring 2024 will take place first. And then certainly after that, yeah, maybe. But what I'm trying to say is that there's still plenty of time. I think both scenarios are currently at least equally possible. It's either a short-term bear rally and we will have a pullback, maybe not to the new low, but at least a significant pullback in a range of 20% or more. Or the more optimistic version is that, yeah, it will be a bit choppy, but we'll be generally trending up from now. In both cases, I think we still have plenty of time to decide how to position ourselves. So other than the usual just DCA into Bitcoin or ETH, I don't think there is no need to take any other action right now. Of course, unless you're a complete degen and you just want to jump into some small cap alts because there are opportunities here and there, sure, by all means. I'm playing a bit with NFTs at the moment, but when it comes to crypto, I'm just staking whatever I can, earning interest on that. So that's, of course, adds to my bags, and then just waiting to see when there's something a bit more clear in terms of potential move up. So I think that's it from me for today. Hope this was useful. If you have any thoughts about it, if you have any thoughts about the current state of the market or how it's likely to play out, please put them in the comment section. If you would like to learn more about crypto, please do check out my course, Crypto Like a Pro. And otherwise, I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching. Bye.